Hello mga ka-meta. Yan, magkamusta ka-meta? Yan, nabulol tayo. Talagang lagare tayo today. Pasensya na mga ka-meta. Talagang kailangan natin i-breakdown. So, nagsulat tayo ng article kaagad, interviews, etc. dito sa big announcement. Big announcement talaga si Magellan Jr. You know guys, at the rate things are going, kung si Tatay Digong ang gusto niya ng golden age or golden era of bilateral relations with China, baka naman si Marcos Jr. ay magiging golden era for US-Philippine relations. Hindi Talano gold level, hindi Yamashita Talano level, but it could be kind of a best times, no? Best of times during the worst of times for Philippine-US alliance. And this is really a huge change from the Tatay Digong era. So kanina mga kameta, nagkaroon ng announcement na ang Amerika po ay hindi lang mag-fully implement ng Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, yung Edca, but dinagdagan pa yung mga bases na i-access ng mga American troops sa Pilipinas, no, across the Philippines in the coming months and in the coming years. Malaking bagay yan mga kameta, malaking bagay yan. So kung maalala nyo, yung Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, ito yung na-negotiate ng Aquino administration back in the day pagkatapos ng Scarborough Shoal crisis, yung Panatok Shoal crisis. Ang idea po dyan is that kung magkaroon ng more rotational access ng mga American troops, kasi of course, bawal sa ating saligang batas na magkaroon ng permanent bases ng mga Amerikano katulad ng dati, nung panahon ni Marcos Sr., nung panahon ng Cold War. Now, kung tataas yung rotational access ng mga American troops dun sa mga bases, military bases, na malapit sa West Philippine Sea, then baka naman yung China ay magdadalawang isip na. Not to mention, sa ilalim ng Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, the initial proposal was actually to even borrow massive military hardware from the US in exchange for giving them access, for instance, borrowing corvettes from them, borrowing frigates from them, or borrowing or leasing submarines from them. That idea was shut down during the negotiations, para sa alam natin. But the idea was that at least sa ilalim ng Edca, yung mga Amerikano, mas marami silang magro-rotate dyan sa mga bases na malapit sa West Philippine Sea, especially sa Panatag Shoal, sa Kalayaan Group of Islands, KIG. But also, yung mga Amerikano ay bibigyan ng oportunidad na mag-develop ng basic infrastructure, no? Infrastruktura dun sa mga base na yan. For instance, pwede sila maglagay ng counter surveillance, counter intelligence, counter electronics, all sorts of different infrastructure there, and preposition weapon systems, no? Kasi hindi lang naman wala ring silbi kung mga sundalo lang pupunta diyan pabalik-balik. Kailangan din nila ng mga armas, no? At kailangan nila ng mga basic na mga hardware to be able to respond to a contingency if God forbid nagkaroon ng giyera diyan sa West Philippine Sea. And this brings me also to the second issue, because alam natin ngayon, hindi lang ma-implement itong Edca. Kasi sa panahon ni Pangulong Duterte, ayaw niya i-implement yan. Dahil para sa kanya, of course, sabi niya, independent foreign policy, blah, blah, blah. Pero alam natin yung katotohanan. Hindi niya ini-implement yung Edca nung panahon ni Pangulong Duterte dahil ayaw niya magalit yung China. Because of course, alam ng China, sa ilalim ng Edca, magkakaroon ng mas malaking oportunidad ng Amerika para i-check itong excesses ng China. Kasi magkakaroon ng forward deployment presence ng Amerika dito sa West Philippine Sea. At yan ang ayaw ng China. Yan ang talaga ayaw ng China. At alam natin, ang China ay opportunistic. So, nung panahon na umalis ng American bases, of course, tayo ay, in an ideal world, ayaw natin ng any alliance with anyone, ayaw natin ng any basis for any country. Gusto natin fully 100% self-reliant tayo. But that's an ideal world. And the reality is that nung kinik out natin ng mga Amerikano, hindi tayo nag-build ng sarili nating kakayahan, daming corruption nangyari, bug down tayo dun sa conflict sa Mindanao, hindi tayo nag-purchase ng mga strategic missile systems, among others. So talaga napag-iwanan tayo ng China at yung mga ibang kapitbahay natin at mga karibal natin dyan sa West Philippine Sea. Now, the reality is this, nung umalis pa lang na Amerika, yung mga bases nila sa Pilipinas, nung early 1990s, wala pang 1-2 taon yung mga Chino, kinuha nila yung Mischief Reef. Diba? Yung Panganiban Reef. So, alam natin, every time na yung Amerika ay nawawala or yung Amerika ay hindi reliable or nagpapakita ng reliability, nag-move in yung mga iba. Nakita din natin nung panahon ng Panatag Shoal, nung wishy-washy ang Obama administration sa kanilang commitment sa atin, boom, pumasok ng China, kinuha nila yung Panatag Shoal after that standoff. So, clearly, there's a correlation, very strong correlation between America's reliability as an ally on one hand and opportunism ng kabila, no? So, ang ginawa nila is, sa ilalim ng Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, ang hope was to force Americans to be more reliable by giving them more access, giving them more presence, essentially making it impossible for them to ignore yung mga problema dyan sa West Philippine Sea. Kaya nga nine-negotiate yung Edca. Now, we can have a long debate about constitutionality of Edca, whether this was optimally negotiated. I've written extensively on this. Pero ang klarong-klaro na sa pagdating sa batas at sa ligang batas natin, ang Supreme Court ng Philippines ay nag-clear na ng Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. So, what happened was that si Pangulong Duterte ay na-implement yan dahil ay na masaktan yung China, right? At of course, may cost yan. May cost yan because the more the Americans could not help the Philippines, the easier for the Chinese to take advantage of the situation. As simple as that. Now, in the meantime, of course, the challenge for the Philippines was to develop its own capability para kaya natin tapatan ng China in a minimum deterrence capacity. No? Remember, walang siraulo dito na magsabi na kaya natin tapatan ng China on a one-to-one basis. No way. No, almost no country can do it. Even the United States, na pag-iwanan sila ng China in terms of number of warships. No, the idea is to develop the minimum deterrence capability, yung tinatawag na poison shrimp strategy, yung tinatawag na porcupine strategy. Kaya nga yung Ukraine, hirap na hirap ang Russia talaga ng Ukraine because even if ang Ukraine ay mas maliit na bansa at hindi katulad ng Russia yung kakayahan niya, it's getting enough, deterrence capability, minimum deterrence capability to make it very difficult for Russians to go all the way. But even more important in case of Taiwan, kahit maliit ang Taiwan, dahil kahit maliit ang Taiwan at limitado ang kanyang resources compared to China, because they have this minimum defense capability, nagdadalawang isip ang China ang sumugod sa kanila, di ba? As they say, weakness invites aggression. Kung ikaw ay mahina, ikaw yung timid, ikaw yung tatay style na wala tayong magawa, you invite bulliness. You invite aggression. And that's exactly why we had all sorts of kalokohan na nangyari sa West Philippines yung panahon ni Tatay, yung nangyari sa Whitsun Reef. Pati si Pacquiao, nagsalita na nun. Yung nangyari sa Reed Bank. Yeah? Lahat ng mga yan nangyari dahil mahina tayo. Hindi tayo nagpakitang gilas na kailangan natin in the way that we need it. Now, in fairness naman sa AFP, in fairness naman sa mga kapatid natin dyan sa DFA and DND, a lot of them, they were doing a good job. At si Tatay kasi mismo nagsabi, wala tayong magagawa, baka gyera agad yan. No, guys. If you understand basic strategy, you know that the game here is dissuasion and deterrence. Kung malakas ka, meron kang basic capability, magdadalawang isip yung mga bully na bubulin ka. Kung mahina ka, timid ka, uy, wag po kuya, ganon, you're gonna invite bullies. It's as simple as that. It's just as simple as that. So the question here is that while hindi pa tayo nandun in terms of developing the minimum deterrence capability, having a minimum number of submarines, corvettes, frigates, 4.5 generation fighters, etc. In the meantime, nawala pa tayo sa kahit level ng Vietnam or Malaysia, forget about the level of China, etc. Anong gagawin natin sa alyansa natin sa Amerika to make them more reliable and helpful to us? So yung Edca na hindi na-implement sa panahon ni Pangulong Duterte, really fully implemented. Ngayon na fully implement at hindi lang fully implement under Marcos Jr., ine-expand pa. So, dun sa mga 5 bases, sabi ko 2 bases yan, ay may direct implication doon sa West Philippine Sea. Basa Air Base and Bautista Air Base. KIG, Panatag Shoal. But this is where things get more interesting mga kameta. Because katulad ng finorcast natin few months ago, katulad ng mga sinulat natin, ipopost natin dyan, tomorrow we'll have a much better OBS para mapakita natin yung mga maps, etc. Ang interesting dito is, parating sinasabi ng lahat, ang ASEAN countries ay parating neutral, walang, hindi politically correct yung sasabihin ko sana, even if Spanish. Never mind. Now, the point is this, alright? Whether gusto natin or hindi, pag nagkaroon ng giyera sa Taiwan, damay-damay na yan. At damay ang Pilipinas because of our geographical proximity, very important, and also our alliance with the US. Not to mention parallel sub-alliances, not full alliances, with Australia and Japan. Visiting Forces Agreement with Australia, Reciprocal Access Agreement being negotiated with Japan, so on and so forth. And lahat ng mga bansa na yan, Australia, Japan, United States, lahat sila worried na ma-attacking Taiwan. And remember guys, lahat ng mga semiconductors, computer chips na ginagamit natin sa lahat ng mga stuff, majority of that ay galing sa Taiwan. So kung susugurin ng Taiwan at masakop ang Taiwan, China will have complete domination of the semiconductor chip making industry and all. Not to mention, of course, sirang-sirang yung reputation of America and others na pinabayaan lang ng Taiwan. So the question will be, who lost Taiwan? And by the way, Taiwan is not even a treaty ally of the United States. And yet, everyone is worried that a forced reunification could be on the cards. Now, if you ask my opinion, I think President Xi Jinping of China is a very rational person. given all the circumstances. I don't think he wants to rush it. I think yung nakita niya sa Ukraine should give him pause. And remember, invading Ukraine, ground warfare is so much different from invading Taiwan, which is going to be far more complicated because you're talking about amphibious attack, you're talking about a country far more developed than Ukraine, and you're talking about far bigger stakes for the West, especially for US, because Taiwan is a major global economy and producer of semiconductors in ways that Ukraine was not, no? And yet, nakita natin sa Ukraine pa lang, hindi rin alay, pero ang laki ng support na binigay sa kanila. Now, ang point natin dito is that kanina may announcement na may 4 na idagdag dun sa 5 originally na ibibigay sa US under Edca. Ibibigay natin in a sense na ibibigay sa in a sense that open this basis for rotational access, for preposition of the weapon systems, for development of some basic infrastructure, and so on and so forth. Now, dun sa 4 na yan, ang kutob natin dyan is isa sa Isabela, isa sa Cagayan. Now, I just don't know how far north this will go. We also have an announcement. Ilocos Norte, yan, kapsat, mga kapsat. In April, it looks like there'll be a massive balikanang exercises of up to 16,000 troops. Philippines, US, but also some from Japan and Australia, and who knows, even South Korea could be in the cards down the road. So, eto na, Ilocos Norte, Cagayan, Isabela, lahat na yan, potentially will be more and more integrated into this whole new ballgame, right? Which is Philippines as a pivotal element of the US integrated deterrence strategy amid this competition with China. Kailangan natin ng OBS for yan, pag-usapan na mabuti, but I just wanted to give you an overview of how important this is. So, kung bubuksan yung mga ibang bases dyan sa Cagayan or Isabela, I don't know how far north this is gonna go. Of course, we can talk about Mavulis and Fuga Island, mas malapit pa sa Taiwan, just over 140 kilometers from Taiwanese shores yung Mavulis. Now, I don't think bubuksan yan. Medyo too provocative na siguro yan. In China, nag-statement kanina, nagalit sila dito sa pagbisita ni Austin at saka announcement sa Edca. But anyway, I doubt na Mavulis and Fuga will be open for Edca, but I think they will be open if, God forbid, there's war, right? Because it's just too close to the action, and allies are not going to be neutral once the shooting starts, right? They cannot be neutral. It's just not gonna. And the Chinese are gonna treat us as the U.S. ally. God forbid if it goes down to the wire. No. Now going back to this, I think what's gonna happen here is there'll be more and more access, American access to bases in places like Cagayan and Isabela. More and more massive exercises like Balikatan, Ilocos Norte, in those areas. So the preparation, the U.S.-led preparation for a potential war in Taiwan, a lot of that will be tied to the Philippines. So the Philippines now is pivotal to American-led efforts to dissuade and deter and prepare for any potential showdown in Taiwan. So the future of Taiwan right now is far more dependent on the Philippines. And the Philippines is far more relevant to the future of Taiwan and what's going to happen in the Taiwan Straits. So boom! Ayan. Magellan Jr., very important na naman tayo. So now, we can have a long discussion, mga kameta, whether this is the best for our country, whether, I mean, we can have a long discussion on that. So, I'm just explaining to you guys the implications of this. It's up to you to make decisions on your own. Pero kasi ganito ang problema natin. A, hindi sapat yung kakayahan natin so far to even have the minimum deterrence capability in face of yung bullying na nangyari sa atin sa West Philippine Sea. Pangalawa, kung may alliance ka sa America, at least make sure that this alliance is useful to us. Kasi ayaw mo naman ng useless alliance, right? In the same way, of course, ang tanong din is, anong ambag natin sa Amerika? Diba? Parating na sinasabi natin, ano ang ambag nila sa atin? Well, ano ang ambag natin sa kanila, no? So that's another question we also have to ask ourselves. And you know, I mean, kung wala tayong alliance at all, and we're just on our own, and we don't even have minimum deterrence capability, connect the dots. Good luck sa mangyari sa atin. And pangatlo, of course, the question also here is, sa Taiwan, paano tayo maging neutral? Ang lapit natin sa Taiwan, God forbid may gera mangyari. And paano na tayo maging neutral ngayon na potentially bubuksan yung mga ibang bases sa north of the Philippines sa ilalim ng Edca. Now, obviously, sinabi nila, officially, this is for humanitarian assistance and disaster relief operations. Walang kinalaman yan sa China. This is not targeted against any country. But that's not how China sees it. And we know in an event of contingency, God forbid, that's not how it's gonna work. But this is how I want to put it, guys. The other way to look at it is this. Remember the ancient Roman saying, diba? You know, if you want peace, prepare for war. So the best way to prevent conflict in Taiwan and prevent further bullying in West Philippine Sea is to make sure that you have the strongest alliance structures possible, that you have the best possible minimum deterrence capability on the part of the Philippines. Because the aim here is not to have war. No one wants war. The aim here is to deter bullying. Positioning to, guys. Positioning to. So kung nag-aaral kayo na Antonio Gramsci, forget about Clausewitz, etc., there's so-called war of position, war of maneuver. Everyone is thinking about war of maneuver. Kung nangyaring giyera, sino manalo? No. The real game, mga kameta, pagdating sa strategy, is war of position. So how is the Philippines rapidly expanding defense relationship with the United States going to affect the war of position and going to affect China's calculation both sa West Philippine Sea and sa Taiwan? And now I'm going to end on this point because I said we can have a proper OBS discussion on this. OBS meaning software, data, etc. Now, for me, kasi it's more than US and Philippines. May aspeto ng Australia, meron din aspeto ng Japan. Si Pangulong Marcos Jr., by the way, ay pupunta sa Japan later this month. So let's look also what's gonna happen with Japan because ang Japan po ay may historical ties sa Taiwan. Yung mga kasama kameta natin dyan na nakapunta sa Taiwan, alam niyo yung mga mas matatandang Taiwanese, they're very fond of Japan. Taiwanese are very fond of Japan in stark contrast to the Chinese in mainland China or the South Koreans, among others. And a lot of Taiwanese speak actually Japanese. And Japanese, a lot of them have very strong historical ties to Taiwan. And geographically, they're very close. So, damay-damay din ang Japan if ever magkaroon ng giyera sa Taiwan. So, if Japan wants to build ties with the Philippines, Australia wants to build ties with the Philippines, the US is building ties with the Philippines, and then Taiwan is next to the Philippines, and the Philippines want to give access to the US. You see, you can connect the dots here, right? What's going to happen here, right? Now, the question is, what is China going to do? Analysis po natin dito ay simple lang. Ang China kasi, ito yung dilemma ng China. They had 6 years to win over the Philippines under Pangulong Duterte. The problem is that, saan yung mga major $24 billion investments na sinasabi natin? More importantly, ano yung nangyari sa West Philippines Sea? Gumanda ba yung situation or lumala? Right? So if you're China, if you push the envelope more, meaning may gagawa kang mga kababalagan dyan sa West Philippines Sea, di lalong-lalo ma-encourage ang Philippines to be closer even to the US. At the same time, hindi ka rin pwede nakatunga nga dyan, di ba? So, my expectation is that in the coming weeks and months and years, China will try to say this. Now, kung gusto nyo talaga ng real big-ticket investments, real economic relationship na next level, then siguro hinay-hinay muna kayo dyan because this is not something we're happy about. So, let's see how is this gonna move forward. As far as Marcos Jr. is concerned, it looks like he wants to have the cake and eat it too. You know, have a good relationship with China, but at the same time, be a very pivotal security partner for the United States. No? So this is where things are getting very, very interesting. And this is where we're going to watch. What's going to be the reaction of China? And what's going to be the reaction of Japan? So in the coming days and weeks, pag-usapan din natin ng Japan, sagot sa, di ba? Japan, pag-usapan natin yan. Of course, pagdating sa Japan, they're very important economic partner to us. But now, Japan is also going to become a more and more important security partner to the Philippines. They're going to give us surveillance, radar systems, for instance. Mitsubishi project yan. And Japan now is going to double its defense spending in the coming years from 1% of GDP to 2% of GDP. Japan is still the third largest economy in the world. So kung ang Japan po ay mag-flex ng muscle at magbigay ng military support to the Philippines, that could be also a very interesting dynamic to look at. Alright? So maraming salamat mga kameta. I'll just gonna keep it here. Sabi ko, lagare. I'll go to the next appointment, next commitment. So in the meantime, thank you so much. Maraming salamat sa lahat na nagbigay ng suporta sa atin. As always, Ma'am Jocelyn Lumber, very, very kind of you. Kay Mike Senan Makalalad. Kanina nasa ABC channel lang tayo sa Australia. So, tingnan natin kung may clip tayo dyan. Mag-share tayo ng konti. Eden Alonan, thank you so much, ma'am, as always. Kay Angeline Simons, kay Michael Uy, Noemi Tablada, Riz Ani. As always, sa mga lahat ng mga suporta sa atin. Thank you very much. So, yun. Sorry, alagare talaga. I have to go back and work on other analysis. There's so much happening here, guys. I know, parang ang boring naman yung sino na pumunta dito ng pakinana. Guys, behind the scenes, a lot of big things are happening. And the implications for the Philippines is going to be very, very big. And the Philippines is becoming very, very important to US-China competition, to the future of US-China competition, and also to the future of Taiwan. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much, guys, and talk to you soon. God bless.